continuing on. So, they have some people come in and move with us who want to start this health center with them. This couple, they are considered heretics in the SDA church. They are not welcome. They walk into a church in Costa Rica and everyone knows who the fuck they are. They are outcasts in the church because they are known for like teaching crazy shit. So they become really good friends with them. Things start to go not so well on this property with my uncle, and it gets to the point to where we move off the property. Far as fuck. But this time we actually moved to a place that me and my sister really like. It was up in the mountains and it's in the colder area of Costa Rica, so it's where they grow their like potatoes and like strawberries and stuff. So we loved it. This house was so nice. This couple is still staying with us. They're with us all the time. They start getting into, with my parents, the topic of the Trinity. The SDA church has very specific beliefs on what the Trinity is. What they were talking to my parents about was considered heresy in the SDA church. You would be kicked out of the church. You would lose your membership in the church if you believed in this. I don't remember the gist of it, but it was like, oh, like the Trinity isn't like 3 people and the Holy Spirit isn't a person. I don't fucking remember, and I kind of don't give a fuck enough. But this became an obsession for my mother. This became her only purpose in life, was studying about the Trinity. She decided that was going to be the only thing that this family could talk about for the next upcoming years, okay? Any waking moment was spent talking about this. We would sit down to eat, we were talking about this. We would sit down to eat, we were watching a sermon about it, okay? Now, during this time, I had an awakening, a brief awakening, which turns out I was only scared of hell. I was scared that I was gonna die and I was gonna go to hell, so I got baptized. I was 14 when I got baptized. I was liking the church where we were going. I had a couple of friends, still didn't have any social media or phone, so I didn't have any way of keeping in touch with them, but I'd see them at church, and sometimes if their family would come over. My mom starts gaining a little following. Because of their newfound beliefs on the Trinity, they kind of stopped going to the church because now the church is too liberal for them. Mostly women. These women treated my mother like God. Quick note, I know that I say all the time that I grew up in a cult. I was asked what cult. It was my mother's cult, okay? This is a narcissist who found God, who found the teachings in the Bible, and decided that this is how she was going to get people to do what she wanted. She had a group chat where she would send them messages every day, insanely long messages. She started really neglecting me and my sister. She wouldn't cook, she wouldn't clean. She was also terribly depressed. This woman would stay up all night and then she would not get out of bed until 4 p.m. because she would wake up and then she would stay preparing her messages for her flock, like she likes to call it. These people started viewing my mom. They straight up would call her an angel. She was a saint. People started selling their houses. They started moving to the country. They started moving next to us to be closer to my mom. We would have our own like church services on Saturdays. Women started leaving their husbands. My mom would convince these women that their husbands weren't faithful to God or to them. My mom's best friend back then is not friends with her anymore. And after my mom moved away, she came out and was like, this woman tore my family apart. I had my husband sleeping in a different room because of this woman, because she manipulated me and made me believe that he was being unfaithful to me, which, mind you, he fucking wasn't. Mom wakes up one day and she gathers us. Now, we had lived in this place for under a year. She gathers us, tells us that she had a dream last night. And in this dream, she had moved to Monterrey, which is about 4 hours away from we live, but it is out in the middle of fucking nowhere. We had been here like to visit because it was pretty. Never, not once thought of living there because it's so fucking secluded. She had a dream that she had opened a vegan restaurant and that she was spreading the word of God there. When my mother has a dream, you already know you're done, because whatever happened in that dream is gonna fucking happen. Within 2 weeks, we had picked up everything and moved. Me and my sister, we fucking kicked and screamed. We fucking begged. Our wants and needs were never heard. It was only my mother's wants and needs. My mother had managed to manipulate someone from the church to just give us a house free of cost for us to live in. So we moved into this house. And they rent a place. I don't know how they still fucking had money at this point, because they still had both properties. Well, actually, I do know. They were fucking living off donations, okay? Because they never got a fucking job in Costa Rica. My parents were jobless as fuck. Living off of donations from people, which I forgot to fucking mention. Never had a fucking job. So there were times where we were concerned about what we were gonna eat for our next meal, and instead of being like, oh my god, I have a degree, let me get a job. No, let's ask somebody for money. Actually, I remembered, oh my god, they got a big ass donation from someone, and that's how they were able to start working on their restaurant. There was a little like outdoor shopping center in this town. It was brand new because this town was so small. Like, this had just been built there and it was the only one. They end up renting a spot in this shopping center and they start working on it. They open the restaurant. Now this restaurant would be the downfall of everything, or so my mom would say. At this point, I'm getting a little bit older. Oh my god, I skipped over an entire part where we lived in a school for a while. A church had like built a school. We lived inside this school, which was built like a prison, mind you. It was not meant for living in. We lived there for about a year because my mom decided that that's where she was gonna open her health center. So all of these moves throughout the years were all made because she was gonna start her health center. Spoiler alert, it has not happened to this day. Everything we did was so she could open this health center. So we lived in a school that was not made for living in. It was built like a prison. That's where we also lived for a while because that served my mother's interests. But this was way before. Forgot to fucking throw that in. So they get the restaurant up and running. This is the closest thing that she ever got to achieving her health center. Me and my sister were like very heavily involved. Like, me and my sister were putting in work that like an adult. We worked, bro. Worked instead of going to school. That's all we fucking did. We worked all the time. Like, I worked harder as a teenager than I fucking work now. Now, during this time, while we had the restaurant, I'm around 15, 16. What led to me first becoming an atheist? A baby atheist Nikki. It was the topic of the Trinity because it was all that was talked about, and I watched this topic consume my family. Nothing else existed. Nothing existed outside of this. Everything and everyone was neglected. There were no other topics of conversation. Like, it fully engulfed my fucking family for about a year. And during this time, we went on a mission trip to the mountains of Costa Rica to visit an indigenous tribe, a bunch of fucking colonizers, okay? These people were just fine without us, okay? Or at least if we would have gone, would have been better if we went to just give them food and clothes, but no, they went to preach the word of God, okay? We had to hike 6 hours to drive there into the middle of nowhere. I've never been this remote in my life. 6 hours to drive there, and then hours and hours of walking up a mountain. No electricity, no nothing. These people live in huts with dirt floors, okay? We're fucking walking into their village, bro. Like, I'm seeing 14-year-olds with 2 children, dude. 2 fucking children. Yes, the group came up here being like, oh, we're gonna help these people. But their real purpose of being there was to convert them. I'm witnessing everything going down while we're on this mission trip. We're there with the pastor and his wife and then a few other members. I'm seeing, for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, I'm seeing these people line up. Excuse my language, these fat, obese church members, bro, lining up, cutting pregnant women to get their fucking food first. But you are here selflessly to help these people. And then the worst of it comes on the second to last day that we are there. when after having Bible studies with them every night, they take them down to the river, and the pastor proceeds to scare the fuck out of these people. He's standing in the river telling them how they are probably gonna die on their way back home tonight. They're gonna go to hell. They need to get baptized right the fuck now. So this man is baptizing person after person, children, it doesn't fucking matter. Which, mind you, that's usually frowned upon in the Adventist church. You have to go through a certain period of time of very specific Bible studies to get to the point where you can get baptized into the church. Bypassed all of this. Mind you, this isn't some separate group like my parents were. This is sanctioned by the church to be sent here. Okay? They're baptizing these people who are literally shaking in their fucking boots. They're so fucking scared. I later find out the pastor was so desperate to baptize these people because he had a certain quota to meet. And the prize for him was that he would get flown out to have lunch with the president of the SDA church. Any pastor in this division, because they have it split up into fucking divisions and shit. So it was the Central American division or some shit. So if this pastor got more baptisms than every other pastor in the division, he would get to have lunch, him and his wife would get to have lunch with the president of the SDA church. And his wife was going around bragging about it and about how many baptisms he had gotten and that they were gonna win this. That is absolutely fucking disgusting. That is fucking disgusting. You are coming to these vulnerable people who all they really fucking need is fucking food and clothes, and you're coming for your own fucking benefit. So that was one thing that I witnessed. So during this time, I start having a lot of questions. And the more I think to myself, the less any of it makes sense. At the time, it was probably out of rebellion. I did not want to hear another fucking word about God. I didn't want to hear another fucking word about religion. That basically I woke up one day and I was like, actually, I don't believe in God. Because you know what happened? I got baptized and I was told how I would feel something special when I got baptized. And I would have a special connection with God. I never felt that. My entire childhood, up until this point, I thought that maybe if I prayed harder, maybe if I was better, maybe if I was more obedient, maybe if I read my Bible more, or if I prayed longer, maybe I would feel something that everyone else is supposedly fucking feeling. What I'm supposed to be feeling. I never felt anything. So I felt like there was something wrong with me. Like I was too rebellious. There was a reason why I wasn't feeling this special connection with God. All along, I'm talking to the fucking ceiling, and that's why I didn't feel anything, okay? But growing up, that was very, very confusing. And I thought that there was something wrong about me. Maybe I had to repent a little bit better and a little bit more earnestly. And then I would feel that fucking connection to God that everyone around me is telling me they're feeling. I got baptized. You know what I did felt? I caught a fucking cold and got a fever because I got baptized in freezing water. That's what I fucking felt. I got baptized and nothing changed. And keep in mind, yes, I did question a lot, but there were periods of my time where I was like being converted and listening to God and like had a change. Didn't feel anything then. So at this point, I'm at this age and I'm starting to sit down and be like, wait a minute, this shit doesn't make any sense. Actually, this sucks. And this has ripped my family apart. It has ripped my family apart. So I woke up one day and I was like, actually, I do not believe in God. And it started showing a little bit, and it was extremely concerning to my parents. I didn't want to be a part of worship every day anymore. Still had to be, but I didn't want to sing anymore when we were singing hymns, and my mom had to force me to do it. She had to make me speak up during worship. I didn't want to talk about that anymore. Other things in our lives were not concerning, like where our next meal was going to come from, or, emotional needs that your now teenage daughters might have. What is most concerning right now is that our daughter is rebelling. This is pressing and urgent. The relationship between my parents was also greatly degraded at this point. My dad is a shadow of my mother. Anything my mother wants, my father does. My mother decides what we're going to buy and when we're going to buy it. If my dad wants to go somewhere, he has to ask for permission. My dad cannot leave the house without asking for permission. If he goes shopping, it's because my mom wants him to. My dad couldn't go shopping without my mom. He couldn't buy shit that my mom didn't ask him to buy. And if he did, if he strayed off slightly, it was a fight. It was a fucking fight. Now, mind you, my dad was not kooky bananas. My dad was reasonable, a normal man who was roped in, who was dragged into this by my mother. I do believe that if I was raised with just my father, I would have had a very normal childhood. And he was basically her second in command. He was the enforcer. So if we ever wanted anything, we would have to go to my mother. And if my dad ever said no to something, it's because it's what my mother wanted, not because it was his conviction. And a lot of times they would have huge fights because my dad was also too worldly, wasn't listening to the voice of God the way my mother was. He was letting us get away with stuff that was a big no-no. And those things are very small things, like, oh, he agreed to take us to a big group hike that some of our friends were doing. Now, at this point, it had become so apparent that I, was having doubts, that my dad straight up asked me one day. He was like, do you still believe in God? And I had to think for a second and be like, do I want to be honest right now? And I was like, okay, it's my dad. Nothing too terrible will happen if I tell my dad. So I told him, I was straight up, I was like, no, I don't actually. He looked at me like I had just confessed to murder. My dad was depressed for a week after that. So word gets around to my mother. This turns into a mourn fest. They're mourning how rebellious I am and how I've shunned God from my life and how they need to do something about this. This is so urgent. So urgent. Something needs to be done. So what are we gonna do? We're gonna restrict her life even more, and we're gonna have talks with her non-stop. Up to this day, like, if I have a disagreement with someone, I still find myself doing the same things that I did when I was young and my mom would have one of her extensive and exhausting talks with me. I'm always picking at my nails and I'm doing stuff with my feet because my mom she didn't care where she caught us, if we were standing, if we were sitting, we had to stay in that exact spot until she was done talking with us, which 90% of the time was a 2-hour discussion. We had to make eye fucking contact and acknowledge that she was talking to us, okay? No questions, no arguments, no fucking nothing. No say in anything. During this time, someone that came to visit us, who is a woman who was giving my parents a lot of donations at the time for everything that they were doing. She was also manipulated by my mom. She came to visit us and she had an iPad. She ends up leaving it for us. So she was like, oh my God, the girls are homeschooled. They can use this. So we started using it. We had to fight for it. And sometimes we would be able to use it and other times my mom would wake up and decide that, actually no. And then we would get it back and it was always a fight. Me and my sister lied and we told them that there was no way for us to connect to the internet. Not true. And we found a way we figured out how to do a fucking hotspot from the laptop and we would connect to the internet. And that was my first exposure to the internet. It started out with Pinterest. That was my first social media, which I'm actually still friends with one of the friends that I made on Pinterest during this time. I was a huge believer during this time because we managed to secretly get an MP3 player and we would go onto sites and download songs, which half the time had like ads in them or they were like a really shitty or like super fried version of the original audio. And I started listening to Justin Bieber and I became a huge believer. We were not allowed to have anything worldly. My sister was really good at drawing, and she started drawing portraits of celebrities, our favorite celebrities. So we basically had posters up and she would tell my mom like, oh yeah, I don't know who these people are. It's just a random picture I got off the internet and that's who I drew. That didn't last very long. She woke up one day and decided that we could not have those anymore. So she ripped all my sister's drawings off the fucking wall. I would sleep in bed every night and dream about how I was going to be Justin Bieber's One Less Lonely Girl. I was a typical teenager. So that's when I started using Pinterest, and then I finally made a Twitter, and that is when I was introduced to Stan Twitter. That is when I was introduced to the emo alternative subculture from my friend who I'm still friends with. We actually became friends because we were fighting on Pinterest about Justin Bieber, and I think she was a big MCR and Black Veil Brides fan, and we were fighting about them, talking about which one's fucking better. And then we ended up becoming friends, and then, you know, I started listening to her music. So that was kind of like my intro to the alternative lifestyle. I started listening to 21 Pilots. They were kind of my gateway band. Listen, this is funny. It's a part of my lore, okay? We got the TOP logo going. I specifically didn't cover it with my blacked out sleeve because I was like, this is a part of my lore. And then I started listening to Sleeping with Sirens. So those were my gateway bands. At the time, we were still working at the restaurant every fucking day, every fucking day. I believe it was open 5 days of the week, of course not on Saturdays. So that really consumed our lives. At this time, when I really started asking questions, I became extremely depressed. Extremely depressed. All I did was sleep. I would lock myself in the bathroom and just fucking cry. I remember like describing it to my friends online and to my sister like I was in this deep pit and I was trying to climb out and the walls were slippery and I could not come out of it. It was bad, and now looking back, like it was fucking serious. It was fucking serious. Trigger warning for anyone, you know, who's here. I did think about ending it every day, very frequently, and how I would be a lot better off. I'm not gonna go into more detail than that, but a lot of ideation. I felt extremely trapped. I felt so hopeless. Like growing up like that, like feeling so trapped and so sheltered from the entire world. It is incredibly lonely. We moved a total of 12 times, and we didn't go to school, we didn't have a phone, so that meant more than once a year we were being uprooted and restarting our lives from zero, because any friend that we made was being left in the fucking dust and we were never speaking to them again. It was incredibly isolating, and I saw no end in sight to this. One time one of my aunts came to visit, and she was like concerned. She was like, hey, like your girls are getting to the age where you need to start thinking about like college and stuff. Like, what are your thoughts on that? And my aunt still tells me about this to this day because she was so insanely disturbed by this. My dad's response was, don't worry about that. We're not worried about that. We are raising our daughters to be good Christian wives and mothers. That is our goal for our daughters. So that's all that I was taught. I was taught that I was not going to be allowed to move out until I was married to a man. Mind you, dating was not allowed. My mom would tell me how once I got older and I liked to bring up topics briefly to get my mom's stance on it without starting a fight. And I learned how to do that by just saying stuff in passing to get her to talk about it without her immediately being like, oh, she wants to do this. Just so I could see where she stood on certain things. My mom intended on being on every single date I would have with this person. This person had to be someone that they approved. And I couldn't get married before, I don't know, there was a specific age that she said, but I think it was before 21 or before 24. Yeah. And I could not move out until I was married and moving in with this person, with this man, because I think this goes without saying, my parents are extremely homophobic. I remember being at the dinner table so many times hearing her talk about, for example, if a gay couple would come into our restaurant and she would talk about them in such a condescending way, being like, these people, these animals, these beasts that just give into their carnal pleasures. It's so sad because like, oh, they were so nice, but this is such an abomination. And I remember even before, like, anything, before deciding that I didn't believe in God, just thinking to myself like, wow, this is kind of awful. This is kind of fucking awful. And I was independent from a very young age, so the thought of this was terrifying to me. I was like, what the fuck do you mean I'm not going to be able to experience life? I can't travel if I want to. I can't do anything on my own. I have to do it with the man that I'm married to. I also tried to get my mother's opinion on moving out. That wasn't going to happen. That wasn't going to happen when I was 18. It was just not an option ever. My mother's favorite saying was, you're not an adult when you turn 18. You're still a child. And you still live under my roof, so you're gonna obey my rules because I gave birth to you. Oh, also to go over a few other things that I missed earlier. Another thing that we never had was privacy. We didn't have doors on multiple of our houses. We did not have doors in our rooms. Me and my sister never had our own room. We always shared a room. We were not allowed to shut the door to our bedroom. We were not allowed to lock the door to our bedroom. If I was in the bathroom and the door was locked and my mom wanted to come in for something, I had to unlock it. There was no, hey, I'm changing, wait a second. Absolutely not. If I was in the bathroom with the door locked and I was like, hey, I'm pooping, if it was more than a certain amount of time that my mother decided was reasonable to do that for, she was banging on that fucking door to open that shit. If I wanted privacy to change, her response was, I literally gave birth to you. You have nothing to hide. No privacy. And this wasn't just when we were children. This was when we were teenagers as well. Okay, this continued until when I moved out. All of this, you can see how it would lead to where I ended up at emotionally. Okay, I did not see another way out, or if there was a way out, it felt very, very hard and far away from me and out of my grasp because I was still a minor. I didn't really have fucking options. So I would spend fucking hours every day literally fucking crying, sobbing. I would cry myself to sleep every night because I felt so fucking hopeless. And my mom would always make comments on how, wow, you're napping so much every day. All you do is sleep. I started going on walks, which I could go on half the time. The other half the time, my mom would say no. But we lived like on a dirt road, so I would go on a walk. And I would like sneak out the MP3 player and put in my headphones and listen to my downloaded music. Up until this point, the only thing that we had ever listened to was hymns, and also with that, piano or violin is preferable. No drums, because drums are from the devil. Also, my mom was very specific with what hymnals we could use, because at this point, she's preaching about how the church has been infiltrated by Jesuits. That is another big thing. My mom got heavily into conspiracy theories. All she would talk about was Masons and Jesuits and the Catholic Church and the Sunday law. Way in the earlier days, actually, before we even left North Carolina, she had a massive folder on her computer where she would put pictures that she took of any logo that had the sun in it, like sun rays, because she thought they were all worshiping the sun. So she would take pictures of them. I don't know what the fuck she intended on doing with those pictures. Nothing ever became of them, but she had hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pictures. So heavily into conspiracy theories. At this point, we had been isolated from most of our family as well. I'm not gonna go into detail about this because it still is triggering and it is the source of a lot of my trauma, but basically, my uncle who moved onto the property with us, he ends up evolving into a prepper, and from there, fully went into psychosis, like full-blown psychosis. This man lost it. Absolutely fucking lost it. His family destroyed. Absolutely fucking destroyed. Like, this man was hearing voices. He was talking to the devil outside. He was coming home saying that the devil tried to kill him. Like, his wife was fucking scared of him. She left him. So during this time, we're also moving a bunch because we're trying to hide from my uncle. So during these years, on top of everything else in my own family, I'm going to fucking court hearings, and my parents are trying to get fucking restraining orders, and we're constantly in fear because my mother is convinced that he's gonna show up to our door with a machete to kill us. So that's a whole other fucking part of it. Okay. But so during all this time, we're trying to get away from him, and he won't leave us the fuck alone. He's following us everywhere we fucking move to. But this situation, it caused a massive rift in our families. My dad's side of the family sided with my dad's brother, so we were completely cut off from that side of the family. By my mother, not by them. She decided that if they sided with the uncle, they were automatically the enemy. I did not get to go to my grandfather's funeral because of this. Yeah, my mother almost kicked my dad out from living with us because he went to my grandfather's funeral, and that was a betrayal to her because they sided with an evil man, but they always had their doubts about my mother, and they had all opened their eyes, and they were starting to talk to each other and to my father, being like, this woman is manipulating you, and you are a shell of a fucking person. You are not yourself anymore because you are living in her fucking shadow. You, as a person, that is gone. She has consumed it, and she is a cult leader. They were saying that way before I fucking started saying that. They were like, this woman literally has a fucking cult following in Costa Rica. People are giving her money. People are moving to be close to her. Literally like picking up and leaving everything behind because of my mother's teachings. God was speaking through my mother, which, mind you, that is not a normal thing in the SDA church. They don't speak in tongues or anything, okay? That's why they only have one prophet. She's the one exception. There are not others. So this is not something that's normal in that religion. My father was also isolated from his family by my mother. He was not allowed to be in touch with them, ever. Like I said before, that would be a betrayal to her. I remember seeing my dad on his hands and knees, fucking begging my mother for forgiveness for shit that she had done. And my mother would give him the silent treatment. We walked 24/7, all of us. We walked on eggshells. Eggshells, okay? I learned to listen out for my mother's footsteps, to know what type of mood she was in, and if she was coming to punish us for something or not, or if she was gonna come and interrogate us on something that she thought that we were doing behind her back. We lived in constant anxiety and fear that she would like find our fucking social media or something. Me and my sister became fucking experts at lying and hiding shit, which the worst we ever did was go on social media. We weren't like drinking and doing drugs and stuff and sneaking out. Like, that was the worst of it, and that shit would keep us up at night because we were so scared that she was gonna find it. Around this time, I decided I wanted to pick up fitness. I thought that would be so fun, so I bought myself a yoga mat. My mother got mad at me for that. I started doing like stretches and working out in my room every day. My mother made fun of me and berated me for it because I should be doing physical labor outside. Why am I doing these silly exercises on my mat? And I did that and put up with her laughing at me until she fully took it away from me and decided that I could not do that anymore. I was not allowed to. I had to go outside and work in the garden if I wanted to do anything. So at the time is when I started going on walks, when my mom was in the mood to allow me to do that, up until she woke up one day and decided that I was going on walks to meet with a guy, which I wasn't. That's what she decided, so the walks also stopped after a certain point. But when I was doing it, that was my little escape, my little time to get away and think. And as silly as it sounds, I do think that my music is a big part of what got me through that time in my life. And that's why I didn't cover my 21 Pilots tattoo, because as cringe as that fucking sounds, like, their fucking lyrics spoke to me and got through to me in a way that nothing else could. So I had started listening to Sleeping with Sirens. Keep in mind, we're still wearing skirts, no makeup, no nothing. I couldn't cut my hair, I couldn't dye my hair. I had hair down to my butt because I was not allowed to cut it. I started asking my mom to let me go to high school because I was really starting to feel that I was being left behind by everyone, which was something I had always felt, but I started to feel it more at this point. And there was a public high school a 5-minute walk from our restaurant, and they had nighttime classes, which these classes were, I believe, 3 days a week, and they were from like 6 to 9 p.m. or something. So like really short, a few days a week, fucking easy, right? And the classrooms are a lot smaller, like there's a lot less people going to the nighttime classes. And I start begging my mother to let me go to this. Absolutely not. It pissed her off so much that after a couple times of me asking, she prohibited me from ever asking again. Now during this time, because we were in Costa Rica, we did not have a curriculum, we did not have anything, so we weren't taught anything. We were so left behind by fucking everyone, because that was not their fucking priority. I was really struggling with that. I felt stupid. I felt really fucking stupid because I was not learning all the basic things that everyone else was learning. Now, during this time, I was sometimes allowed to go on walks when we were at the restaurant. I was like, this is like my little restaurant break from work. When I would go on my walk, I would walk past this guy who was emo as fuck. One of probably like 2 emo guys in that town. Small fucking town. I would walk past him every day and I was like, that is exactly what I want. Now, bad. Should have never fucking pursued that, but I was fucking 17 at this point. I never talked to him, but turns out that this whole time, he also had a crush on me. He was my secret little afternoon walk crush. He finds out that I work at the restaurant, but I was not a vegetarian. He could not fucking care less about health. He started coming to the restaurant because he knew that I worked there. My mother started to notice this. Now, the most that was happening was that I was making conversation with him, okay? My mother got so upset about this. One day, he came to the restaurant and I gave him a hug because I knew him. That was the end of the fucking world. And that is where my downfall started. Well, not started, but this is where it got exponentially worse. Me hugging him blew shit up for me. My mom grounded me and sent me home. She told me that I could not come to the restaurant for the next 2 days, which meant everyone else in the family was going and I was staying home by myself. I was never allowed to work at the restaurant again. That led to eventually my mom freaking out about this so much. She shut down the fucking restaurant. She shut down the restaurant because I threw myself around this guy's neck and I was being worldly and I was so boy crazy and rebellious. And she woke up one day and she was like, oh my God, I neglected my kids. And instead of being normal about it, she was like, I neglected them and I wasn't there and now they're rebellious and they're making really bad decisions because I wasn't there to guide them enough. I wasn't with them enough, which mind you, she was with us 24/7 and we didn't get a moment of fucking privacy, maybe just when we took a shit, and even then it was mildly supervised. She shut down the fucking restaurant. And this led to basically our imprisonment for the next 3 months. 3 fucking months. She closed the fucking restaurant. We were not allowed to leave the fucking house. No walks, no nothing. We were not allowed to leave the fucking house for 3 fucking months. We were isolated as fuck. I remember the first time she let us go back to the grocery store with my father. It was like pulling teeth to convince her to let us do that. And it was my dad who was like also like kind of pushing a little bit, like, but I'll supervise them the whole time. We had to beg and plead, like, hey, we haven't left the house in 3 months. Can we please go to the grocery store? Please. So she let us. Now during this time, because I was a teenager and my mom closing down a restaurant is not gonna fucking stop me, I found this guy on social media. We started dating, but it was only an online relationship because I was locked in at home. It lasted for about a month and a half. This was more towards the end of our 3-month imprisonment. So I was secretly dating him, and when my dad started going to the grocery store and taking us, I would scheme this shit and would run to the corner, see him, and talk to him for like 5 minutes and then run back to the fucking car before my dad would get back from the grocery store. Crazy. I don't know how the fuck I got away with that shit without getting caught, but I fucking did. That lasted about a month and a half. Because I was doing so bad mentally, that was kind of my escape from reality, and I clung onto that. So a month and a half later, he broke up with me. And he was like, well, we can't see each other because of your parents. Obviously now I know that, he was not dating me because he was in love with me, but at the time, I thought that was my man. That was the love of my life. So I was heartbroken, devastated, absolutely fucking devastated. After that, if my mental health was bad, it declined rapidly. It went down into the fucking trenches because that was my one escape. That was my oh my God, maybe there is something outside of this. Maybe I can get out of here. Because in my head I was like, well, maybe if shit goes really bad and I have to just pick up and leave, maybe I can go and be with him. That was ripped away from me. I was destroyed. At this point, I'm 17, so I started thinking, and I was like, I'm kind of at the end here. I'm at a fucking railroad. Either I end it all, or I get the fuck out. I get the fuck out. And so I was like, I have to give it a fucking shot. At least. I gotta give life a fair shot, man. I have to at least fucking try. And I started scheming very secretly. The only person that knew was my sister and some of my online friends. Also during this time, my mom found our MP3 player. She didn't find our social media, but she did find the MP3 player. Ripped us to shreds for that. To shreds. So we got even more heavily grounded for that. I started scheming. Out of everything my mom restricted me from, for some reason, she allowed me to get laser hair removal because I was super, super hairy and it was uncomfortable. And so she was like, yeah, you can get laser hair removal. Well, during my scheming, I made some appointments very strategically on days when I knew that they would not be going to town. Somehow, for the first time ever in my life, I managed to convince my mom, because listen, like I said, I was really good at lying and hiding shit. So I was able to pretend like everything was fine and dandy and I was so obedient during this time, which built my mom's trust back up a little bit. Somehow for the first time in my life, I was able to convince her to let me take the bus by myself to the town to go for my laser appointment. Which for a couple of these, it was my laser appointment. For a couple of these, it was not. A few of these trips were for job interviews and apartment tours. Now, even though my mom had shut down the restaurant, they were still selling their food products that they were making at the restaurant. So it was a lot of vegan shit, because vegan shit was not very popular in Costa Rica at the time. So there wasn't a lot of competition. Me and my sister had a couple of products that were ours that we were making, and we would get to keep that money. We were not allowed to spend it on anything unless it was approved by my mom, no shoes, no nothing, because we only needed, 1 or 2 pairs of shoes and, any clothes that my mother approved of. At this point, when we started making money, she started making us buy our own, but only what she wanted us to buy. So I started secretly saving my money. I secretly bought my first pair of ripped tights, which, fun fact, I still have to this day. I secretly bought them at a thrift store. I checked out twice. Once with my parents with the approved items, and once just with the tights, shoved them in my bag. And I also secretly bought makeup. Because my sister was really good with photography, because I did grow up in a family of photographers. My entire family on both sides, there's a bunch of fucking photographers. So I had a camera probably before I could walk. Weird as fuck. But I grew up having cameras. Well, my sister discovers that she's super talented at photography. And so I really liked being in front of the camera. So we started doing our own little makeshift photo shoots. We would build or DIY our own sets. This would be when my parents would be gone because they were trying to sell the big property. So every once in a while, they would leave for an entire weekend to go to our property to like fix it up to sell. And this would be our weekend of freedom, which meant watching movies on the iPad in the living room and catching up on all our like celebrity interviews, like for Justin Bieber interviews and shit. And like downloading new movies for next time. And this is when we would go to the little store next door and buy like paper and shit and like DIY our sets and taking pictures. So I secretly bought makeup. I was absolutely dog shit at it. Absolutely dog shit. I don't think I have a picture of it, and if I had one, I would not show you guys because it is embarrassing. Yeah, I started saving up money. I started telling my friends online that I was gonna go. And I started bringing up the topic to my mom, like, yeah, when I turn 18 and I move out. I brought it up a few times until it turned into a big fight. And the topic also got banned. Not allowed to bring it up anymore because she was mad. I was testing the waters to see maybe I can move out normally when I'm 18. Funno. So I turned 18 and now I'm really locking in. I'm like, I need to get my shit in order. Like now I can really go. So I secured a job and I got a fucking apartment. All of this happened secretly. If we were like running errands in town and I was able to get away from my dad for like 30 minutes, paid my deposit, yeah, it didn't fucking feel real. It was absolutely fucking terrifying. It was absolutely fucking terrifying because it was something that I was doing all alone. I talked to my sister about it. I think up until it happened, first of all, she didn't believe I was actually gonna do it because she was so attached to my mom. She kind of viewed it as like, wow, I can't believe you're doing this to our parents and you're doing this to my mother who used my sister as a therapist. She used both of us as her therapist. She would talk to us about our dad and any other issues she had in life. And then, started using my sister a lot more because my sister was a lot more understanding of her made-up problems in her head, in her narcissistic, self-centered world that she saw through the lens of religion. And then the day fucking finally comes when I'm like, okay, I start my job in like 3 days. So 2 days before I moved out, I go to my mom and I'm like, hey, I need to have a talk with you. So we go to the bedroom and I start out by telling her, hey, so I'm 18 now and I feel like my life is passing by and I need to figure out who I am and what I want in life, and I think I need to move out. My mom is dead silent this whole time, which is terrifying. Even now looking back, like I was very, very mature about this conversation. I wasn't like lashing out and being like a fucking teenager. Like I was very, very mature about it. I was like, I need to go and I need to live my life and figure out what I'm gonna do with my life. I've saved up, I have an apartment, I found a job, and this is just what I need to do for myself. After I finished telling her, she was like, wow, this is shocking. And my mom can get real scary. She does not show much emotion. She'll get very quiet. She was like, this is shocking. When you told me that you needed to talk to me, I thought, wow, I think she's finally ready to come back to God and to turn her life around and to stop rebelling. And this is what you come to me with. I am shocked and disgusted. I don't know if that's the exact word she used, but that was the gist of it. She proceeded to give me this silent treatment for the next 24 hours. My dad is a lot more emotional. He reacted very badly at first, so I started packing up my bags, literally just like throwing my clothes into trash bags. And my dad took my bags and locked them in the car. Literally took them from me and locked them in the car. And he was like, no, you're not doing this. And I was like, you literally cannot stop me. And this was the only point where my mom sided with me, and I don't even think it was for sincere reasons. I think it was to contradict my dad because she's the one who convinced him to get the bags out and be like, you can't do this. But then proceeded with the silent treatment for the rest of those 24 hours while I'm packing and stuff. And then the day finally comes. I think I was gonna leave on like the 10 o'clock bus Because the town, like where I was moving to, was only like 20 minutes away. It wasn't even that fucking far. So that morning I had everything packed up, I had it all ready, and this time we sat down, all of us, to have a talk again. And this time my mom spoke a lot more. Honestly, I had blocked out a lot of what she said during that. But basically she was like, oh, I didn't actually think you were gonna do that. Because she was not understanding, I finally, for the first time ever, opened up to her, and I was like, I have been so depressed. Like, I have been wanting to end it. And this, right here, right now, this is my last shot at life. This is my last attempt. Either I do this or I end it. I can't do this anymore. Now, mind you, I had told her in the past that I had wanted to see a therapist. That was always out of the question because therapy is from the devil. My mother's response to me telling her that I wanted to end it was, well, of course you feel that way because you threw God out of your life and you don't pray anymore, you don't talk to God anymore. You wake up every day and you choose to feel sad because you want to wear all those black clothes, and this is what you've done to yourself. You wake up every day and you choose this for yourself. This is the devil making you feel like this. If you talked to God more and accepted him back into your life, you would be happy again. That was her response to me telling me that I wanted to end my life. She said, if you do this, if you actually go through with this, we are done. You are dead to me. You are not my daughter anymore. You do not exist to me. I will never speak to you again. You will never see me again. She said, if you do this, you are putting me in the grave. You are killing me. You want me dead. You are putting me in the grave because this is my worst fear in life. This is what you were doing to me. Me, as it always was my mother. Somehow manages to make me, being depressed and suicidal about herself. Oh, there's always a way. When you're a narcissist, there's always a fucking way. There's always a way. And that was basically that. I grabbed my bags, I took them out to the side of the road, and I came back inside to say goodbye to my mother, who was at the kitchen sink washing something. And I went up to her and I was like, okay, I'm gonna go now, goodbye. Silence. I had to hug her back. I had to hug her fucking back and say goodbye to her. It was like hugging a wall. It was like hugging a fucking wall. And that, to this day, is one of the most painful things I have ever fucking been through. She ignored me like I was not even fucking there. My mother, who raised me, saying that I had freedom of choice, that God gives us freedom of choice. We wake up every day and we have the right to choose. This doesn't feel like freedom of choice to me at all, really. So I go out to the side of the road and I'm waiting for the bus. And during this time, my dad came up to me and he didn't say anything, but he grabbed my bags. He starts grabbing my bags and taking them to the car. And I was like, oh my God, like, I need to fucking get out of here. Like, you cannot take my shit away from me again. Like, I just want to fucking go. My dad, in his own fucking way, maybe he could have approached it differently, but he decided to put all of our differences aside and he was gonna drive me to my new place. He put the bags in his car and he was like, let's go, I'm gonna drive you. So he drove me and he helped me get all my stuff inside and then he left. That was that. A lot happened after that. I can give you guys a very detailed story time of how I moved out and what life was like after that. But fast forward to now, I have been no contact with my mother for, I believe, almost 2 years. It is one of the hardest, but one of the best decisions I've ever made for myself. I don't regret it. I don't miss my mother as a person. I know to some of you that sounds terrible to say if you have not been through the things I have been through. That sounds awful. But to those of you who have, I fucking understand. And going no contact with a parent is such a hard decision to make, but sometimes it is the only fucking option. It is the only option. Because unfortunately, my mother did not stick to her promise of never talking to me again. And she continued to berate me and torture me and degrade me for years and years. And I put my head down and I was always nice and respectful and put up with it until I started going to therapy. And I was like, holy fuck. So many of the issues that I am dealing with today, most of the issues that I am dealing with today are coming from my mom. And I need to start there with, I need to deal with that before I can deal with the other issues in my life. So that is what I did. I cut my mom off. If you guys want story time on that, there's a lot that I have left out. A lot of much more traumatizing things. But this is the basic and watered down rundown of how I was raised in my mother's cult, which the whole cult, the whole group, proceeded to shun me after I moved out. They were told lies about why I moved out, but shit did not stop when I moved out. But I'm still fucking here. Moving out was the scariest fucking decision I have ever made, but it saved my fucking life, and it is the reason why I am here today. And you wanna know why I still don't believe in God today? Because I got myself here. I am the reason I am still fucking here today. God didn't fucking listen to me when I was fucking a child, praying to him every night, lost and fucking scared, feeling like a fucking outcast, confused. He never answered those fucking prayers. You know who did? Me. I got up and I was like, I need to do something about this. I need to get myself the fuck out of here if I want to survive, if I want to fucking live. And I fucking did that with incredible friends and people that I have met along the way. But I got myself out of that. God didn't. And that is why I am a fucking atheist. And that's why I will always be a fucking atheist. Okay? If you have stuck through this long story time, thank you for listening. If you were going through something similar, I hope that this was fucking validating. You're not alone. I'm still in fucking therapy, working through my shit. If you've had to cut off a parent, you're not a bad fucking person. I know that we are told that that is awful, that we should put up with anything that our families fucking put us through. That's not fucking true. You are your own person, and if something is bad for you, like, you know that better than anyone else. Cut that off if that's what you need to do for your sanity, okay? If you grew up the way I did, then fuck man, we made it out. We fucking made it out. It was fucking hard, and it took blood, sweat, and fucking tears. But we're here. We're fucking here. Okay guys, thanks for listening. I'll see you guys next time for my next story time or yap session or something. Bye.